Amelia Sullivan always believed that Maplewood Complex was the perfect place for a fresh start. Its manicured hedges, neatly lined sidewalks, and a community of tenants who mostly kept to themselves made it feel like a haven from the chaos of the city. She had lived there for a year, working her job at a local real estate office, quietly observing the other residents who called Maplewood home. For months, nothing out of the ordinary happened. The neighbors remained friendly but distant, and no one pried into anyone else's secrets. That was until the letters arrived. On a crisp October evening, Amelia came home from work and found a cream-colored envelope slipped under her door. Her name was typed on the front, and there was no return address. Inside, a single piece of paper, also typed, read, "How long will you bury the guilt that eats you alive at night?" Those words made her stomach knot with dread. She checked the envelope but found no signature, no hint of who might have sent it. The message was so vague yet eerily pointed. It felt as if the letter spoke directly to something she had tried, for years, to forget. Amelia's hands trembled. She reread the letter 3 times before folding it back into its envelope. She tried to brush it off as a prank. Maybe a coworker found out something about her rough past and decided to toy with her. Yet that night, as she lay in her bed, she couldn't sleep. Her mind wandered to the events she had tried so hard to bury. A regrettable decision she made in college. A betrayal that led to heartbreak. She forced the memory away. It was impossible to pinpoint who would have discovered that detail. She nearly convinced herself it wasn't worth worrying about, but her heart thudded in her chest like a relentless drum. The next morning on her way out, she bumped into her neighbor, Miss Alvarez, who managed the leasing office. The woman waved a piece of paper in her hand, eyes wide. "Did you receive one of these as well?" she asked softly, as if someone might be eavesdropping. Amelia looked down and saw the same cream-colored paper. "Yes," she replied. "I'm not sure what it means. Do you know what's going on?" Ms. Alvarez pursed her lips. "I've heard that several tenants have gotten them. They have different messages, all of them cryptic. Some are short, some are long, but each one stirs up something personal." As they spoke, a flustered man emerged from the elevator, nearly collided with them, then stopped abruptly. Amelia recognized him as Sam, a quiet graduate student who occupied one of the smaller apartments on the second floor. He too clutched an envelope. His face was pale. "Talk about invasion of privacy," he muttered. "I'm trying to figure out who's behind this. It's got to be someone living here." "In all my years, I've never seen anything like this," Ms. Alvarez murmured, heading back to her office. "I'll see what I can do, but be careful. Ask around if you need to." Amelia and Sam shared a tense look before parting ways. They were strangers brought together by a shared, insidious secret. There was someone in Maplewood Complex who knew how to pry open old wounds like a scab no one wanted touched. That evening, Amelia found another envelope under her door. Her anxiety peaked. She locked herself inside and read, "How many times did you choose your own comfort over another's life?" Her throat constricted. The question was more specific this time. All day, she had tried to convince herself that maybe her letter was random words meant to spook her. Now, there was no doubt. The note spoke directly to the incident from her past, an incident she had spent years trying to excuse. She had let an old friend drive home alone, drunk and distraught, unwilling to take her in for the night because she couldn't be bothered. The next day, the friend crashed and ended up seriously injured. Amelia had visited her only once in the hospital, leaving with a trembling voice and the knowledge she was partly to blame. Tears gathered in Amelia's eyes. She squeezed them shut, trying to quell the sense of shame that spilled forth. Her chest felt tight, but more than guilt, there was fear. Who, aside from her friend, knew every detail of that night? She could almost sense a presence lurking beyond her door. The next morning, she discovered that multiple letters were being delivered each day. More tenants were talking about it, some turning paranoid. Ms. Alvarez invited everyone to gather in the lounge to discuss the matter, disclaiming it might be best to meet in person before speculation got out of hand. During the meeting, about a dozen residents crowded around a table in the lounge. Amelia saw Sam, along with a few couples she'd seen in passing, a single father named Derek, and an elderly woman named Greta who had lived there for ages. Near the far end sat Alicia, a petite, well-dressed woman with sharp eyes. She fiddled with the envelope in her hands, refusing to make eye contact with anybody. Mrs. Alvarez cleared her throat. There's no easy way to address this. Our complex is supposed to be safe, but it appears that somebody is delivering letters that seem to contain personal information about our lives, our regrets. She paused. We need to share if we've noticed anything suspicious, a stranger in the halls, an odd noise at night, anything. A chorus of murmurs followed. One man, who introduced himself as Aaron, said he heard footsteps at 3 a.m. Another swore he saw a hooded figure outside the mailroom last week. Everything was speculative, and the tension in the room built like static electricity. Then Alicia spoke up, voice wavering. I think we should also talk about what these letters mention. Does anyone feel comfortable sharing what was said in theirs? She gave a small, bitter smile. I'll start. Mine said, Mothers don't forget, and neither do their children. Her face flushed. There's something in my past that I regret, she said, taking a breath. I gave up a child for adoption when I was young. Hardly anyone knows. Now, somehow, a stranger does. Amelia felt a shiver spread across her shoulders. A hush fell after a moment. Greta, the elderly woman, spoke next, voice trembling. I can't believe I'm sharing this, but my letter said you left him behind. Do you still see his face at night? Many years ago, my husband was terminally ill. I abandoned him for a time. I couldn't face his suffering. Her confession, raw and painful, hung in the air. No one judged her. They were all too consumed by their own silent nightmares. Sam approached the table, offering tentative comfort. We all have secrets, regrets, and obviously this person behind the letters knows them. The question is how. He cast fearful eyes around. We must consider that it's someone close to us, maybe even someone in this room. A startled hush followed as eyes darted from person to person. They finished the meeting with no conclusion, other than a resolution to be vigilant and to share any new information. The letters, however, did not stop. They arrived more frequently, each diving deeper into raw confessions. Amelia noticed changes in her neighbors. Derek, the single father, started running laps around the property at odd hours, as if trying to outrun a memory. Alicia would give people suspicious, borderline accusatory glares, especially if they lingered in the hall. Greta seemed perpetually on the verge of tears. Even the unstoppable Ms. Alvarez looked fatigued and haunted. One afternoon, Amelia decided to try to piece together a timeline. She wrote down when she received her letters, where she found them, and any unusual occurrence around that time. She discovered a pattern. The letters arrived every morning between 7 and 8, or in the evening between 6 and 7. Maplewood had a back entrance few used. She suspected whoever was sliding these letters under doors might be coming in through that side. While examining the back door that evening, she nearly collided with Alicia. The woman was as startled as Amelia. Alicia clutched something behind her back as if trying to hide it. Amelia raised her hands in a calming gesture. Sorry, I was just checking if this door's been tampered with. It's locked, Alicia said curtly, stepping back. I was about to run an errand. Amelia, noticing her tense body language, forced a small laugh. This is a good idea. We should keep an eye on these entrances. Alicia gave a stiff nod and then hurried away. Amelia caught a glimpse of a small slip of paper in Alicia's hand, like another letter, or perhaps notes she was taking. Suspicion flickered, but she reminded herself that Alicia might just be as frightened as everyone else. That night, Amelia woke suddenly to a faint rustling. Her first thought was that it had to be the wind or a stray animal rustling near her window. She forced herself to settle back, heart hammering against her ribs. Through the darkness, the red digits on the clock read 3:12 a.m. Then she heard it again, a soft scraping sound, like paper sliding. She leapt out of bed. Racing to her front door, she dared to peer through the peephole. No one was there, but a new envelope lay just inside the threshold. She swallowed, drawing in a shaky breath. This wasn't supposed to happen at 3 in the morning. She turned on the hallway light, picked up the envelope, and pulled out the lettering inside. You never forgave yourself, so why should anyone else? A chill spidered through her. Her hand shook so badly she nearly dropped the page. Someone had pressed this letter into her space, so close, during the dead of night. She had never felt more exposed in her life. The question was savage in its precision, mocking the remorse that she struggled with daily. Sleep was no longer an option. Amelia sat on her futon, rereading each letter she received, thinking that maybe there might be a clue hidden in their words. But all she could see was the cunning psychology behind each phrase, each one specifically designed to strike a nerve. The writer had to be a skilled observer, or someone who'd accessed personal information. Could it be Miss Alvarez? She had access to tenant files, or Elisha, who had quietly pried for confessions during the group meeting. While dawn broke, she opened her laptop and began searching online for anything that might connect Maplewood Complex's name to strange incidents or privacy breaches. She found no mention of such events. Her anxiety surged as the sun rose, and she felt no closer to identifying the culprit. That evening, a loud argument in the hallway interrupted her dinner. She rushed out to see Sam and Alicia facing off, voices raised, a small handful of neighbors watching. Alicia's eyes flashed with anger as she waved a wrinkled piece of paper in Sam's face. Sam shrank back defensively. I saw you sneaking around again, Alicia shouted. You were by the mailroom at 6 this morning, rummaging through something. How am I supposed to trust you? Sam reddened. I wasn't rummaging. I dropped my student ID in a mail slot by accident and was trying to get it out. That's it! He threw up his arms. I can't believe you suspect me. You're the one who's always lurking around corners. Now you're accusing me of targeting everyone? Alicia's face contorted, but she said nothing further. The tension was unbearable. Ms. Alvarez stepped between them, voice firm. Stop it! If we cannibalize each other, we'll never figure out the truth. She turned a stern gaze on each of them, and they gradually backed away, scattering into the corridors. Although the argument settled, words of suspicion lingered in the hush that followed. Amelia saw the pained, paranoid look in Alicia's eyes as she retreated, as though the guilt or the shame behind her regrets was too much to bear. In the days that followed, the atmosphere in Maplewood Complex grew oppressive. People locked their doors at all hours, flicking suspicious glances toward neighbors in the elevator. The usual cordial greetings disappeared, replaced by fearful, haunted silences. The sense of being watched permeated every moment. One evening, Amelia scheduled a private talk with Mrs. Alvarez. As soon as she stepped into the leasing office, she noted how frail Miss Alvarez looked. Stacks of forms and incomplete paperwork littered the desk, and the woman's eyes held dark circles. Thank you for seeing me, Miss Alvarez, Amelia said, taking a seat. Please call me Rosa, she murmured. What's on your mind? Amelia licked her dry lips. I'm worried. I'm scared for everyone here. We're on edge, accusing each other, and it would help if we knew more about whether you've discovered anything. Any clues about who's doing this? Rosa exhaled, shoulders drooping. I've tried everything. We have security cameras, but they aren't installed in every hallway. The ones we do have haven't shown anyone suspicious sneaking around. It's as if the letters magically appear. Amelia gave a small nod, letting that settle in. After a second, she quietly asked, Do you know anything about the occupant who lived in my apartment before me? Could they have left something that might help explain this? Rosa frowned and opened a file. Your predecessor was a woman named Lydia. She lived there for about a year, left with no issues on record as far as I can see. She paused. I do remember she was quiet, barely socialized. She left a month before you moved in. She flipped through pages shakily. Nothing else stands out. They sat in silence, the looming reality sinking in. Then Amelia noticed Rosa's trembling hand and how she tried to hide it. You've gotten letters too, haven't you? Amelia asked gently. Rosa nodded, swallowing hard. Yes, Short messages about a mistake I made many years ago. In another state, another life. I didn't think anybody knew. Her eyes shimmered with tears she fought to contain. I've never told a soul about it. So how? Amelia placed a hand on hers in solidarity. We'll figure it out, Rosa. I promise. But the promise felt hollow. In the following days, the letters grew more vicious. Amelia found that each time she thought she had steeled herself, she would read the new letter and feel a fresh wave of guilt and shame. Her regrets consumed her, nightmares blending with reality until it was hard to tell them apart. While searching for answers, her suspicions shifted from Alicia to Sam. Then, to an older man on the first floor who rarely spoke but always seemed to be hovering around corners. One night, as the leaves rustled with an oncoming storm, Amelia heard a knock. Cautiously, she peeked through the peephole. It was Sam, looking distraught and pale. She let him in, and he immediately began talking in a hushed, urgent tone. I've been cataloging everything, like a detective. Every letter I got, it's time, everything, he said. But they always arrive when it's quiet, and they all revolve around secrets only the recipients would know. I have no idea how this is possible, but I've noticed something else. He paused, pulling a notebook out of his jacket. Some of the letters have included references to an event in the building that none of us knew about. A reported suicide from years ago. I heard rumors some occupant died under suspicious circumstances, but there's no official record in the leasing office's files. Amelia's heart rate spiked. You think that event is tied to the letters? Sam flipped through the pages, his voice trembling. Possibly. The caretaker who discovered the body apparently said the occupant left letters behind, confessions. If that's the case, maybe someone found them. Or maybe it's something else entirely. His eyes bored into hers, revealing a swirl of dread. I hope I'm wrong, but it's the best lead I have. That evening, both Sam and Amelia sought to confirm the rumor. They questioned neighbors who'd lived in Maplewood the longest, specifically Greta, who'd been there for decades, but the elderly woman only offered half-remembered whispers of a tragic incident. A young man who hanged himself in the basement laundry room. She shook her head, unable to recall specifics. She looked genuinely frightened to reopen that wound. By midnight, the sky split open in a thunderous storm. Amelia trembled in her living room, curtains drawn, lights dimmed, the wind howling outside. The complex's lights flickered ominously. She heard heavy footsteps in the hallway, deciding to investigate when they didn't cease. Armed with only her cell phone's flashlight, she crept into the dark corridor. Lightning flashed through the windows, illuminating a figure at the far end of the hallway. Tall, shrouded in a dark jacket, the figure was crouched near Alicia's door, slipping an envelope under it. Amelia's heart leapt into her throat. Could this be the letter-bearer, the one tormenting all of them? She stifled a gasp and made a sudden dash, shining her phone's light on the figure. "Hey, stop!" she shouted, heart pounding. The figure jerked upright and bolted toward the stairwell. Amelia chased after, adrenaline coursing through her veins. She skidded around the corner, yelling for help, but the complex felt eerily empty. She glimpsed the figure again at the bottom of the stairs, face obscured by a hood. Rain pelted inside through the side door that hung partially open. She hurried over, nearly slipping on the wet floor. Outside, the wind and rain battered the courtyard. The figure vanished around a corner. Amelia, soaked and trembling, realized how dangerous it was to be alone out here. Another flash of lightning revealed no trace of the cloaked intruder. Her breath came in ragged gasps as she finally retreated back inside, frustrated that she'd lost the culprit. By the time she returned to Alessia's door, a small crowd had gathered, awakened by her shouting. Alessia picked up the envelope, reading the typed message with horror. Miss Alvarez appeared, her hair askew, an expression grim. Amelia said in a shaky voice, "I saw them. Tall, wearing a dark hooded jacket, maybe male. They ran outside toward the courtyard." She stared around. "We've got to call the police." Police arrived amid the storm, took statements, and circled the block, but they found no suspect. The officers advised them to lock their doors, remain cautious, and phone 911 If anything else occurred, there wasn't much more they could do. Once the flurry subsided and the neighbors retreated, Amelia lingered near Alicia. The woman looked surprisingly vulnerable, arms wrapped around herself. She gazed at the battered envelope in her hand. Amelia gently asked, "What did it say this time?" Alicia bit her lip. "It said, when pain becomes unbearable, you pass it on." Her eyes glistened. "I can't take this anymore, Amelia." She pressed a trembling hand to her mouth. "It's like I'm being punished for a choice I made decades ago, one I can never undo." Amelia placed a tentative hand on Alicia's shoulder, feeling her despair radiate. "None of us deserve this torment," she whispered. "Whoever is doing this is twisted." Soon after, they parted ways, each person retreating to their private cage of guilt and suspicion. For nearly a week, no new letters arrived. The calm felt unnatural, as if a violent storm had passed overhead but hovered just beyond sight. However, the damage was done. No one was sleeping well, and everyone avoided each other. Even in the elevator, an uncanny hush reigned. Then, on a Saturday morning, a final letter arrived under each resident's door. Amelia peeled hers open with shaking fingers. It read, "Regret is a chain. You wear yours. Are you bold enough to break it?" She blinked rapidly. After all the torment, this letter felt different, almost like a challenge. It didn't accuse her or mock her. It forced her to confront the weight she carried. She ventured out to the hallway, only to notice Alicia standing there, openly weeping at her version of the letter. Soon, Rosa, Sam, Greta, and several others joined them, each clutching what appeared to be a similarly worded envelope. Instead of dividing them, these last letters seemed to urge a confrontation with their guilt, rather than wallowing in it. Rosa spoke softly. "I don't understand. Why this sudden change in tone?" Sam shook his head. Maybe whoever wrote them wants us to face our errors and break free of them." He glanced around. "But who would orchestrate something so cruel just to deliver this kind of message?" They stood together in an uneasy circle. Then, from around the corner, a figure emerged. Everyone stiffened. But the figure was not menacing. It was Alicia, who had retreated out of sight moments earlier. Amelia felt confusion. "Alicia?" Tears streamed down Alicia's face. She raised both hands, surrendering. "Before anyone accuses me, please let me explain." Her voice cracked. "I was the one who started it, but I wasn't alone." A hushed gasp rippled through the hallway. People stared, perplexed and outraged. Greta took a step forward, trembling. "Why would you do this? Do you have any idea how cruel—" "I had help," Alicia continued, as though spurred by a confession so heavy she had no choice but to let it all out. "There is a counseling group I attended for people who struggle with unresolved guilt and shame. We're taught specific psychological methods to confront that guilt, to break the secrecy. One person from that group works with me in the building's mailroom. We recognize that many people are stuck in their regrets. We thought, in some twisted way, we could force people to confront them. I never intended it to go this far." Fury and confusion permeated the group. Sam clenched his jaw. But those letters were so vicious, deliberately cruel. Why terrorize people? Elisa swallowed. "It's the method we derived from radical therapy. A shock to the system, forcing confession, but my partner took it too far. I wanted to stop weeks ago, but I was scared, ashamed." Her eyes brimmed with remorse. "He's the one you saw in the hallway, Amelia. He escalated it behind my back. I confronted him last week, insisted he end it. That's why it suddenly stopped. We agreed on one final note, one urging you to release your regret instead of letting it ruin your life." The hush was deafening as everyone processed her confession. Alicia sank to her knees, sobbing. "I'm so sorry," she choked. "I blinded myself thinking it was for the greater good. The regrets in my own life clouded my judgment." Rosa stepped forward, her face pale. "We need to call the police on you and your partner." Alicia nodded in resignation. "I'll cooperate, take full responsibility." No one rushed to comfort her. A swirl of anger and betrayal filled the air, but there was also a faint sense of relief. At last, they had an explanation. They could direct their hurt and rage at the person responsible, rather than suspecting every neighbor. One by one, they went down to the lobby, Alicia in tow, to contact the police. Alicia revealed her partner's name, claiming he had already fled. Within the hour, 2 officers escorted her away for further questioning, leaving the residents to gather in solemn disbelief. In the days that followed, Maplewood Complex settled into a cautious calm. Without the looming threat of the cryptic letters, people began to relax. Neighbors who had once been distant now found themselves exchanging sympathetic nods, even having conversations about what they endured. In an odd twist, the letters that had torn them apart also provided a twisted form of common ground. Emilia took a slow walk through the corridor, noticing small changes in others. Sam smiled wearily at her, as if to say, "We survived." Miss Alvarez Rosa looked less haunted, though sadness lingered in her eyes. Greta sat on a bench by the window, reading quietly, head held a little higher than before. Maybe all of them had recognized in the darkest hour that they were not alone in their human frailty. That evening, Emilia stood in her living room, gazing at the last letter she had received. For so long she had let regret eat at her soul. In the aftermath, she realized it was her choice whether to keep wrestling with that guilt or to learn from it, to apologize to those she had hurt and try to forgive herself. Taking a slow breath, she lit a small flame to the corner of the letter, watching it curl into ash in the sink. The next morning, she went online and found a way to contact her old friend, the one she had abandoned that awful night. She would call, she would listen, and she would apologize, even if it was too late for her friendship. She needed to close that chapter. Outside, the autumn leaves began to fall, swirling in the wind, and Maplewood Complex breathed a collective sigh of release. In each apartment, residents still had scars, still had shame, but for the first time in a long while, they felt less afraid to face it, and less alone.